Hey everyone, today I want to talk about why Tour Guide is a good card. Not a broken card, but a good card because I get asked every day, why are we running this card? Why is it good in Blood Death Knight, but also in other decks? And this card tends to be very good in Death Knight. And the main answer, there's lots of different parts, but one of the main answers is just efficiency. So what efficiency means is you're just getting a good amount for the cost. You get a 1/1 charge that you can rush into a minion or go face, and you get a 1/1. So that is the main reason, but there are a lot of subtler reasons why it is good. The first reason it is a 1-drop. Now you might say, well, we have other 1-drops. So let's say if we just were to go through the Hearthstone collection and look at, if I were going to be a Death Knight deck that was going to run another 1-drop, what 1-drop would I run? Vicious Slither Spear is a card that Death Knight does run. Frost Death Knight has historically run, but it's run less now that Death Knight doesn't run as many spells. When Frost Death Knight was running the heavy spells build, it was a lot better. And now even Frost Death Knight values corpses. Other 1-drops that Death Knight can run. You could run Worgen Infiltrator, that's not good. Body Bagger is already run in most lists. Noxious often is a kind of pseudo removal, but the damage hurts yourself. And you can see Skeletal Sidekick is good when you already have minions on board, but not good as a 1-drop. So there really aren't that many for Death Knight great options for 1-drops on 1. You can see, the Arms Dealer can get value traded. The Banshee can get traded. So in a lot of sort of decks that aren't, really aggressive decks that are looking to, maybe coin out 2 1-drops, Tour Guide is one of the best options, and that's why the Blood Death Knight runs Tour Guide and Body Bagger. It's just beating out a lot of other 1-drops. But let's talk about what are some of the other benefits. And this is one of the big benefits. Tour Guide can really help your turn 2 plays. What are your turn 2 plays? Amalgam and Hematurge. So often when you don't have Tour Guide or Body Bagger, but you're in the spot of, do I just play these as a 2/3? Sometimes you do, usually you don't. But when you have Tour Guide, well, let's say your opponent plays a minion, let's say they play like a 1/2. Now you can go Hero Power, trade it, and then go Amalgam on it. Or let's say you have Hematurge in hand, and you think your opponent's not going to kill off your 1/1. Well, now you can Hero Power on 1, and then get that corpse that you can use for your Hematurge. I might be pronouncing that card wrong. I get that cards wrong all the time. But the bottom line is that sets you up for a good play. So it allows you to keep that tempo going early and get that corpse. So that's another. But another thing is, what's interesting about it is, for the Amalgam, we don't actually want to Hero Power this turn. We want to Hero Power next turn, and this also applies to the Nerubian and Vizier. And this is another big element of why Tour Guides do it. It allows you to store up tension. Tension is this concept, I wrote an article, but it's this idea of, if you have a bow, there's the bow and you pull the arrow hasn't been flung yet. Where if you let go, the arrow is flung, it fires at. That's you spending the spell. But with a card like Tour Guide, you always have that 0-mana Hero Power ready to go. So normally, if you play Nerubian, it's awkward because if you don't play a minion on 2 and they don't kill it off, well, you can't get the spell. But with Nerubian, if they play a minion and you have the Tour Guide Hero Power, you can go Hero Power on 3 and then get the guaranteed discount. So not only does this Tour Guide got you the free 0-mana 2 Hero Power, but allows you to get the Nerubian on curve and get the free mana. So, but this concept of tension is really important too. So, for example, let's say I'm going into my turn 5 and I'm up against an Outcast Demon Hunter. And what's a very light, let's say I have a read that they're going to do a big pop-off play. And what do they do with that pop-off play? They play that 2/3, the Wretched Exile. Well, what's the problem with, if we're going to go Blood Boil on 5 against their wide board, what's the problem? Well, the Wretched Exile has 3 health. So the problem is I don't have a way to kill it and go Blood Boil. Your opponents can exploit this, and this is a very common play opponents will do. So they'll put you in a spot where no matter what play you do, you're in a bad spot. If you go Blood Boil, they're bad. But if, let's say, you go, you decide to kill out the Wretched Exile, you might take 12, 14 damage because they have a wide board for their big pop-up play. How do you get around this? Tour Guide. So Tour Guide, you could play on 4, save up the hero power, knowing the Wretched Exile plays might be coming, and then when they do their pop-up play, you hero power, hit into the Wretched Exile, and go Blood Boil. So this is the concept of storing up mana. So what's the most common way you do this? Weapons. Weapons are a way to store up sort of mana without board, store up tempo, store up tension, and same thing with locations. Another great way to store up mana that isn't just minions on board. Minions on board are the most common form of tempo, but 0 mana hero powers, weapons, locations, even card draw is technically a form, or mana discounts in hand is another great example of storing up attention. So this is another thing tour guides do, and it's small. It's small, and that's why it's not that big a deal, but people are kind of looking at tour guide as it's this really weak card. I think it's just on a subconscious level, they see 1/1 for 1 mana, and they don't realize all the little things that tour guide can do. Next, I want to just go over some common decks that run Tour Guide and their stats. For Blood Death Knight, it is medium strength. It is not great, but it's still better than 5 other cards. So this is what I often see with Tour Guide. Let's see at Legend if it's better. So at Legend does a little bit better. And I think maybe players know how to use Tour Guide a little bit better, same reason. But it's not great, but it's not bad. And remember, you have to run 40 cards in your deck. Not every card's going to be broken. So if you cut Tour Guide and you put in a card that's worse because you're thinking Tour Guide's not that great, this is the concept of marginality. Some cards are good enough. They're on the margin. If you cut Tour Guide and put something in worse, the deck could be worse. There's also, let's look at some other. Totem Shaman is a deck where Tour Guide is very good because it is built around the totems, and getting these 0 mana totems are very, very useful. So being able to go Tour Guide on 1, I believe Tour Guide has one of the highest mulligan win rates. Does not beat Carving Chisel and some of these really broken cards, but a really good card to have. The best turn 1 play you can possibly have. Thaddeus Warlock, not that great, but still beating a lot of the other cards that are currently run in the deck. This is, I think, the most common version of Thaddeus Warlock. So still good enough often. And Unholy Death Knight is very good. Now this is an old version. I'm looking just at the most common versions because they have the most statistics. So some people have asked, the question of, is it no longer good with Construct Quarters? So let's look at decks that run. Let's find Tour Guide, but do not run Construct. We'll see if I am right, if it's still good enough. So here's a Blood Knight list. Is this my list? I think this is my list. Let's see in my list. Tour Guide still good enough even without the Construct Quarters. And you can see and here, let's see if we can find another Death Knight list. So here's an Unholy list that's currently running that runs Tour Guide. Tour Guide still, beating out other cards like Blightfang, Rowdy Fan, and Necrolite. So bottom line is Tour Guide is not broken, but it's often better than other cards. And you can see statistically, remember, if you're going to cut Tour Guide and you put in a worse card, and sometimes often it's according to the very simplistic stats kind of paint a picture. Some things are more complicated than simple drawn win rates. If we're cutting Tour Guides and we're putting something in that's just bad, our win rate's going to drop. So just because Tour Guide is not a perfect all-encompassing card does not mean it is not good, it is not valuable. So that's just my general point on that. So in conclusion, 1, why do we run Tour Guides? Remember, efficiency, just as good stats for the cost, having a 1-drop, storing up tempo, and at the end of the day, it's just slightly marginally better on a statistical level than other cards. So it's not that crazy. It's not this, but I think a lot of people are like, oh, I want to cut Tour Guide for something else, and you're probably going to cut it for something that's worse. I think one of the big things that I find players who have not gotten Legend massively overvalue value and undervalue tempo. What I often say is players are saying, hey, why don't we run this greedy card instead of Tour Guide? And at my level, your opponents are coming to kill you. They're coming to kill you, and they're going to kill you fast. You see rogue players. You see, I've had Outcast Demon Hunters kill me on turn 5 when I was playing Warrior the other day because I didn't do anything with the deck. I was just playing, a stat here, and they came and got their OTK literally on turn 5. And so if you are not a deck that is going for the win, it is going for the kill, it is trying to do things quickly, you are going to get run over by players who know how to play tempo well. So Tour Guide, like I said, it's a good enough marginal card. It beats most other one drops out. It's a really nice thing. But in the future, if better cards, if a better one drop comes out, if a deck has other needs, maybe the meta gets a lot greedier and you need and the hero power isn't valuable, who knows? But my point is, Tour Guide is a good enough card, and you shouldn't feel bad about running it. It's a good card. So anyways, hope that you found this kind of content useful. See you guys on the ladder, hopefully running your Tour Guides and not cutting it for bad cards. See you around.